Last year, Samsung brought together its two most successful lines, the Galaxy S series known for its powerful cameras and the Galaxy Note with the S Pen. As a result, we got the Galaxy S22 Ultra, the ultimate flagship phones that basically had every feature you could imagine. By doing this, Samsung freed up the autumn launch window for its foldables, which the company thinks are the future. It's no surprise then that Galaxy S23 Ultra is not exactly revolutionary. For what is old, it looks almost exactly like its predecessor with those signature sharp corners, and you still have the familiar S Pen and that impressive 10x optical zoom camera. But while it is similar to the previous model, the new S23 Ultra improves a few of the fundamentals for a great flagship smartphone. The big upgrade this year has got to be the new 200 megapixel main camera, which promises print-worthy detail in your photos and much better night shots. It is also a strategic shift for Samsung. The company used to equip overseas versions of this phone with its in-house Exynos chip, a practice that many condemned as those chips were just not as good as the Snapdragon processors used in the US models. But starting with the S23 Ultra, all versions regardless of where they are sold are equipped with the same powerful Snapdragon chip. So are these improvements a good enough reason to upgrade? Let's find out. If you are a new viewer in our channel, please subscribe to our channel for more videos. Thank you. Samsung has made it quite simple to choose the right Galaxy S23 model for you. If you want the S Pen, then you should go with the Ultra model, and if you don't use an S Pen, then the Galaxy S23 Plus model is both cheaper and considerably lighter weight. You won't get a 10x optical zoom camera on the S23 Plus, but still has the 3x zoom camera, and it's also got the same processor, same charging speeds, and not a marginally smaller battery. And for those who prefer a smaller phone, the Galaxy S23 is the obvious choice. As we have already mentioned, all Galaxy S23 Ultra models, regardless of the market, will have the same Snapdragon 8 Gen 2 chip, which is great news for consumers. The Exynos chip used before was not as power efficient, and it even affected image quality, so that will no longer be a problem on the new model. Samsung is the market leader in display technology, so it's no surprise that the screen on the S23 Ultra looks exquisite, but again, so did the one on the S22 Ultra. The main advantage here is just the size. It's a massive 6.8-inch screen with a wider aspect ratio and bigger screen real estate than most other phones, which makes it more comfortable for media consumption. But the essentials haven't changed from last year. You still have 750 nits peak brightness and the same 1440p resolution and the same LTPO technology for variable refresh rate that goes from 1 Hz to 120 Hz. In terms of biometrics, the S23 Ultra again sticks with the familiar Qualcomm-made ultrasonic fingerprint scanner, which has proven to be fast and quite reliable. The phone also supports image-based face recognition with the front cameras. There is one notable difference in the S23 Ultra quad camera and a few smaller improvements, but overall it's not a vastly different camera system. After 3 years of using a 108 megapixel sensor for the main camera, Samsung is making the jump to an impressive new 200 megapixel sensor. 200 megapixels sounds crazy, and it is, but the reason you should be impressed is not because of the detail alone. In fact, most people might never actually use the full resolution, and by default Samsung uses pixel binning, and by combining 16 pixels into one super pixel, you still get 12 megapixel photos by default. But thanks to that pixel binding trick, Samsung is able to clear out noise and deliver outstanding night shots. Enthusiasts also finally get the Expert RAW mode worked right into camera app. Expert RAW on the S23 Ultra is more powerful than the regular Pro mode because it not gives you manual camera controls but also allows you to shoot RAW files with multi-frame exposures. New this year is a 50 megapixel RAW file option which won't take up as much space as a 200 megapixel file but which still provides a lot more detail than the default 12 megapixel shot. Despite the drop from a 40 megapixel selfie camera to a 12 megapixel shooter, we don't see a massive drop in quality. The image processing has actually improved in many cases. As we have already mentioned, all S23 models have Snapdragon 8 Gen 2 chip. It's actually a slightly modified version of the stock chip turned to a slightly higher clock speed, especially for Samsung, and this chip is an absolute beast. As you can see in the benchmarking scores above that, Snapdragon 8 Gen 2 processor delivers a massive improvements in speed. We measured a 40% faster single-core CPU performance and an incredible 50% in multi-core. We rarely get such massive improvements, so this really shows how special this chip is. Built on the latest and most efficient 4nm technology, it is a huge improvement particularly for gamers. The GPU in the new chip actually is on par or even better than one in iPhones, which used to lead the market for a few years. While the chip enables all sorts of fancy tech like Wi-Fi 7 and 4K 120 video, not all of them actually make it for the Galaxy. For example, the S23 Ultra still supports only Wi-Fi 6E and 4K 60 video recording, so there is that. Not least impressive is Samsung's decision to double the storage for the base model of the S23 Ultra while keeping the same price. There are the models you have: 8GB of RAM plus 256GB storage, 12GB RAM and 512GB storage, or 12GB RAM plus 1TB storage. Having a 1TB option is a great thing for power users, but the impact of a 256GB base model will be far greater for the everyday user, so we are really excited about that. Before the S23 Ultra release, speculations suggested it may have satellite connectivity just like the iPhone 14 series, but unfortunately that is not the case. At the end of the day, the Galaxy S23 Ultra is a step in the right direction for Samsung. It's not a giant leap, but it improves in all the key areas with a more capable camera and impressive new chip that will finally come to all customers and double the storage. These are things everyone will appreciate. All the rest of the minor tweaks are welcome additions, even if far less impactful. 8K video is still not something many users would actually use. The improvements in video stabilization are again nice, but not a game changer. The Galaxy S23 Ultra in many ways feel like an S version. We doubt those who currently own an S22 Ultra will find much reason to upgrade, but those coming from older phones and particularly those who are annoyed by a slower Exynos processor will love this new model. It keeps the power and versatility of a Note, and there is really nothing quite like it on the market.